Thank you. This is the bourrée. Bourrée. Yes. It's so short. Why don't we? It was 2 crowns. Yeah, right. One, very funny.
What does bourrée mean?
It's a dance. It's a kind of dance. Dance in 2. I'm not sure. Have you ever seen a bourrée
No.
danced?
No, not.
I'll have to look that up now. Thank you. Yeah. All right. This is the hornpipe. This one's very famous. You've heard it at many weddings and all that. But it's really wonderful. I wish I'd written it. How many songs have I said that about since I've been here?
It's usually Telemann.
It's usually
We say
Telemann.
that
That's
about.
true.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Here we go. 1, 2, 3. much fun.
Yes.
Well, and to think as music has come all the way to now.
Right,
Right.
right,
Yeah.
And that we know it. You know, that people still know it.
right, right. From what, 1717? Good grief. Okay, so moving on, here, let me open this, so I'm ready to go. Our next H is Franz Joseph Haydn. Oops, this is your part. Looking at it thinking, this doesn't look familiar at all. Wait a minute. There we go. Franz Joseph Haydn. We all know who Franz Joseph Haydn is. We know how important and influential he is and was to Western music, simply put. He was born in 1732 in Austria and died in 1809 in Vienna. Austrian composer, he changed music. He helped establish the forms and styles for the modern string quartet and for the symphony, and he's often known as the father of the symphony. So, and he wrote 108 symphonies. Now, the first, 20 are fairly short, but still, 108 symphonies. Most of his creative life, he was employed by the Royal House Esterházy, which was, the castle was located in a remote town in Eisenstadt, which was about 30 miles from Vienna, and 30 miles was a lot longer, a lot farther away then than it is now. And so he was fairly isolated, so he was able to be creative. He was able to be creative with his music. He was a friend and mentor to Mozart and briefly to Beethoven. And he wrote many, many, many operas and oratorios. I just wrote down a few here. 108 symphonies, we just said that, 68 string quartets, 47 piano sonatas, 20 operas, 14 masses, 6 oratorios, and it goes on and on. So, I know, right? He had a lot of time to do that.
I guess so.
Yes.
That's the first thing I thought.
Yeah. So, we all know those things about him, but there were a few points here that I really didn't know, and I was visiting my knowledge about Haydn. He was mostly a self-taught composer. This I didn't know. His music is known for its wit and its playfulness, which you will hear very much in this piece, I hope. And he, at the ripe old age of 6, left his home to be trained as a choir singer and to play various instruments. He left at 6, and he almost never went back to his home and saw his parents. In 1740, so 2 years later when he was 8, he moved to Vienna to become a boy choirster in part of an even more important and influential group. And he stayed there for 9 years until he was 17, and his voice changed, and they kicked him out. They did. They kicked him out, apparently. And he had nowhere to go. He had no home. So he bummed around, I suppose, and was a freelance musician for quite a few years. And it's during this time, apparently, that he taught himself really how to compose. His musical training was quite extensive in how to play instruments and, reading music and singing, but there was not a lot of theory or composition. So he taught himself, which I really didn't know. In 1760, he began working for Prince Esterházy, and he really never left after that. He was in their employ, except for a year or two at the end of his career when Prince Esterházy had passed away and his son had taken over, and he didn't want an orchestra anymore. So he said, "See you later, Haydn," and Haydn went off to London and became even more famous there. Then Prince Esterházy II passed away. His brother came on board and said, "Come on back, Haydn, please, come back and be our composer again." So he did that as well. Three more things here. He had apparently an unhappy marriage and no children, and his wife disliked music so much that apparently, I read this in a reputable spot, so we can take it for 50-50 at least. She had her cooks use his manuscripts for pastry pan linings.
Oh, come on.
I didn't know that, did you? So, maybe we would have had
Would
109
explain the
symphonies. His oratorio, The Creation, which was written in 1797, is an homage to Handel's Messiah. He loved the music of Handel, and so he based this Creation oratorio on the Messiah, which had been written 50 years before. And when Napoleon invaded Vienna, Haydn would not leave his house. He said, no, I'm staying here. He was an old man by then, and he said, I'm staying here. And Napoleon apparently posted a guard for him at his house so that he would be safe. And then he died some number of weeks later. So he was, I know, right? Who knew that? By all accounts, a rather happy, upbeat, jovial person, and it shows in his music. So if you hear these bits of wit and happiness in his music, I think that's actually how he was, from what I've read. So this is a piece. It's three duets, Opus 99, which is at the end of his life, and it was also written around 1797. So we have two movements, an andante con variazione, so a theme with variations. So you should be able to whistle along with the theme and all the variations, and a presto. So two movements in this particular duet. Okay. Ready? 1, 2.
How could his life not like that?
I know, right?
Yeah.
I don't know, maybe they needed to spend more quality time together. Or something, I don't know. All right. Ready? Oops, wait a minute. Air conditioning is making it move. 1 and 2. Thank you very much. See the wit, hear the wit and the playfulness.
Yes.
And he might have written these for, just a party or perhaps to teach students or something. I don't know. I couldn't find these particular duets what they were written for, but something like that probably, I would say. Okay, moving on. Oh, good. Looks like it's going to be about perfect. We have 2 more that begin with H. They're very loose and kind of squishy theme this time. Kind of works though. Where is it? Here it is. Pardon me, I need to get a drink of water here. We have Hava Nagila. And I think that we have played this for you. Yes, something completely different from Haydn, right? Hava Nagila is a folk song traditionally sung at celebrations, weddings, bat mitzvahs, bar mitzvahs, that sort of thing. The melody is based on a Hasidic nigun. A nigun is a wordless prayer melody in Hebrew. And it probably the tune itself originated probably in Ukraine. That is what I read. There were lyrics that were added in the early 20th century in Palestine, and at every Jewish celebration, many Jewish celebrations, you will hear Hava Nagila, which actually means let us rejoice. So let me have a sip, which will make me very happy. And then we will be on our way. If you want to dance, please. Absolutely.
We'll just tap our feet.
Okay.
We might too.
You counting? Mm-hmm. Fun, right?
Yeah.
Crazy.
All right, and our last one for you today is another folk tune. I need to take off all my little stickies here. Don't tell my daughter I'm going to put this on the piano.
She's a pianist, so she
Yeah,
has
she
an
always
opinion
scolds me when I
about
do that.
things that go on the piano.
British Isles folk tunes. Here we have Haste to the Wedding, Marie's Wedding, and The Devil's Away with the Excisemen. Yes. So, Haste to the Wedding is a traditional Irish jig originating in sometime in the 18th century written by who knows? We don't know. It derives from a tradition in County Donegal in Ireland where the tune is played for the bride when she leaves her parents' house and goes to the church. So that's where this one comes from. Marie's Wedding is newer. It's a Scottish folk song, but it originated in the 1900s, and we know it was written by John Bannerman for a sporting event that was happening at the time. Yes. And The Devil's Away with the Excisemen, I love this one, folk song written by Scottish poet Robert Burns in 1792, which depicts the devil fiddling through the town and taking the hated tax man with him. Yes, so that the townspeople can continue to brew their beer and not fear that the the tax man is going to find it and tax it. So the way this happens is we just go right from one into the next, and then we'll finish up here. Okay? So imagine the bride coming out of her house and going to the wedding, and it actually sounds pretty happy. So we think it's not a mournful thing at all. Okay, here we go. Ready? 2 measures. 1, 2, 1, 2. excisemen, love it. Thank you all for coming, this is great. It's so nice to see you all again.